Okay. Let's pick up some phone calls here. Frank in Grand Rapids, Michigan. You are on with Dr. Rejali.
Hey, how you doing? I think the biggest problem that we are having right now with this the terrorist problems and the way we have treated prisoners as far as interrogating them is that we're missing the one key point is that we went after Saddam Hussein first off for weapons of mass destruction. Then it was because he was a terrible tyrant, that he killed lots of people and that he tortured them. And here all along we went after this guy. He's now gone. He's dead, and a lot of his family removed as well. And the problem is that all along, while we were doing that because we were justifying our reasons for being there, we were torturing and doing the very same thing that tyrants do and dictators do in other countries. My feelings is that we're going to really misrepresent ourselves as in America, that we really are good people doing what's right, following the rules of engagement. And we need to bring this thing to justice very quickly before nationally other countries actually bring
charges against us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Frank raises thank you, Frank. You raise a really important question, Frank, for Dr. Rejali, and that is, how do countries recover from torture?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I was in Yemen last spring, and everyone was so excited about having Barack Obama as President of the United States. And there's still a tremendous amount of goodwill out there towards the United States, even in places like Yemen, where you wouldn't expect that. Yeah. Secondly, I would say that, yeah, we did misplace our priorities, but let's face it, there are people out there who really do want to hurt us. And what we really do need is a good counterterrorism policy, one that's really intelligent and one that's based on sound policing practices. And, you know, I know plenty of people from the FBI, Jack Clunan, for example, who brought al-Qaeda people in using standard policing techniques, the same ones that we use to bring in the mafia. Breaking into a terrorist group is just like breaking into the mafia. You need inside informants, you need public cooperation, and you can pretty much get them. So yeah, the problem is that what happens after you have a torture crisis is that your intelligence services get deprofessionalized. All the pros who were supposed to be there working get disgusted with the torturers, and they leave.
Has that happened to us already?
I'm pretty much sure that we can see this by the slew of retirements that happened in the last 8 years, and all these people who went into being private contractors. So what you see always, you saw this in Brazil, you saw this in France, you saw a split between
when the French were torturing the Algerians.
The French were torturing the Algerians. You see that split between the pros who know how to do counterintelligence and everybody else who wants to be Jack Bauer. And the more you torture, the more people who volunteer are people who want to be like Jack Bauer. So it takes 5 or 6 years before you can actually get your intelligence services back online to fight.
Wow, incredible, incredible. Shannon in Windsor, Ontario. Hey, Shannon.
Hi there, Tom. I just had 2 quick points. One was that the effect of torture on individuals doing the torturing, they saw a lot of that during World War II when they did this. The Germans had the Einsatzgruppen that were going around from town to town clearing out the Jews, and the impact that it had on those individuals, which were, I mean, and these were like horrible, horrible people. They cleared out the jails and put in like psychotics and stuff, but they still had such a very difficult time keeping and recruiting to the Einsatzgruppen. And the other thing I wanted to point out was that Barbara Coloroso has done so much work on this, in the impact that a torture culture can have on, and how we as individuals lose our sense of the other, and that the other
humanity
becomes an object. And I mean, certainly, I think politically that has to happen for us to allow torture.
Yeah. Dr. Rejali, comment on that? Thank you, Shannon.
I guess I have 2 thoughts. Yeah, I mean, in one sense, one of the great things about this torture crisis that we're having right now is that the worst that's happening between the Democrats and the Republicans are document dumps where each is accusing the other and more information is coming out. We forget that in France, for example, the military nearly overthrew the Fifth Republic under de Gaulle in 1962, and there was a near push, and the Fourth Republic collapsed under the torture crisis. We forget that in Brazil, all these torturers, when they came back, they couldn't integrate them into democracy, so they actually have a special prison outside of Sao Paulo in which they put all of them. So, you know, there's a very different world which we live in here. We're actually a lot healthier. Machiavelli once said, scandals are great for democracy, conspiracies are their end. And, you know, what's great about a torture scandal like this one is we can talk about these things. I think the other point is that, yeah, torture has come into our public imagination, and Christopher Hitchens is now proud of the fact that for his birthday he can waterboard himself once, and he feels like he's done it better than KSM. Now we find that the KSM is the reigning waterboarding champion at 183. Right. I mean, these kinds of things become ridiculous, but that's where torture hides. It hides in hazing and all these fraternities, which then they come back when torture finally gets come out of the cage.
George Bush branding his fraternity brothers with a hot iron. Manny in Winnipeg, Canada. We have a minute to the top of the hour. Manny, you're on the air.
How you doing? Oh, my granddad was picked up by the Gestapo in '44, right after the bomb plot. My dad was about 4 years old when it happened. He doesn't remember much about it, but after that, my granddad was never the same. He died in '72. He was paranoid schizophrenic.
He was tortured.
He was tortured. They picked him up because he refused to vote for the local Nazi mayor. He couldn't hold a job down in the village because, simply put, he refused to be a good Nazi.
And he was an innocent man.
He was an innocent man.
Yeah.
He was never
the worst.
Thank you, Manny.
The worst thing about torture is it destroys the atom of trust that builds social relations together. It's not just that you don't trust the state; it's that you can't trust each other. You can't trust a spoon or a doctor because these are things that were used to hurt you.
You can't take a shower.
You can't take a shower. Every part of your relationship to the world is fundamentally disrupted when you're subject to violence like that.
And those who subject people to violence are not as damaged, but seriously damaged by it as well, and the society is damaged by it.
The society is damaged, but the people who are least damaged are the ones who just do the orders.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
The farther away up the chain you are, if you just authorize
who give the orders. In other words, John Yoo and Jay Bybee are the ones who are least damaged by it.
Yeah, we don't live in a perfectly just world.
Yeah, amazing. Republicans, Democrats, and Arlen Specter coming up next. Not him, but a conversation of him. We'll be right back.